Hi, and welcome to CityBeat, inside Palo Alto. I'm P.A. Moore. On today's show, you're going to see once again how the city is working for you. We're going to visit the Emergency Operations Center. We'll also learn how utilities prepares for winter storms. We'll watch that creek camera to see what happens when the waters rise. And along the way, we're going to learn about the city's Green Business Certification. And we'll visit our old friends, Trash Busters, the History Corner, and lots more. Do stay with us. I'm with Betty Meltzer and Susan Rosenberg to talk about the Trees for El Camino project. Betty, let's start with you. What's the vision behind this project?
The vision behind this project is the greening with trees along the 4.3 miles of El Camino. We visualize a canopy of trees along the median, along the sidewalks, creating a very welcoming street of trees and green and a whole different environmental feel. It's very exciting.
Well, thank you. Now let's turn to Susan. Susan, can you tell me what's the relationship between the Trees for El Camino project and the city of Palo Alto?
Well, it's a good question, PA. A lot of times people are confused about what we're doing. We've been working with the city of Palo Alto since the last century, since January of 1999. And the project it's on city property. But what we're doing is fundraising. The city has put up $1.5 million to replant the medians with trees, and Betty and I and the rest of our organization are going to the community to raise another $1 million so that we can really put hundreds of trees along El Camino Real.
Susan, tell me though, there's an organization called Canopy which plants trees. So what's the relationship again between you and them?
Canopy was started 7 years ago, and it's also a nonprofit. What Canopy does is works with neighbors to plant trees in their neighborhood. Canopy has written 13 tree walks throughout the neighborhoods of Palo Alto. They work with the city on the Right Tree in the Right Place program. So what the Trees for El Camino project is doing is very different. We're doing fundraising completely.
Well, that's nice. Now, let me find out one more thing about the project from Betty. Betty, where's the project now?
Our project, the Trees for El Camino project, we are starting on the fourth leg of a stool. If you think of a four-legged stool, last year we focused on getting Caltrans connected with this, and they did commit to an 8-foot median. Getting Stanford University to support us. They have announced officially that they support the project, and working with the city to get the city's involvement, which has continued. We now are going out to get community support for raising of the $1 million, and that means all parts of our community, the businesses, foundations, corporations, university, residents, individuals. This is an opportunity for the whole community to leave a legacy of trees along El Camino. It's a wonderful gift to the future.
Then, of course, we want to get people involved. So what's the best way for them to contact Trees for El Camino project?
The best way is to either call 324-TREE, area code 650, of course, or to check our website, www.treesforelcamino.org. And this is on our brochure. All this information is on our brochure.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Steve Steiger is with the Palo Alto Historical Association. We're here at the Red Barn at Stanford. Steve, what's the significance of this Red Barn behind us?
Well, the Red Barn is one of the few remaining buildings from the original Palo Alto stock farm.
And the stock farm was started by Leland Stanford at what point in his career?
Well, this was after he had been the governor of California and had made his money both in merchandising in Sacramento and building the Transcontinental Railroad. He then was living in San Francisco when he began buying land here on the peninsula in the mid-1870s.
And his goal was a stock farm. It was really to breed horses, is that correct?
Yes, he had some scientific ideas that you could breed a very successful trotting horse. This is a horse that pulled a harness behind it. And by using scientific principles, he did invest the time and money to build a barn complex that we see here and then bred racing horses.
And the most famous of these horses that was really the stud horse was Electioneer. What's the background on Electioneer? How was he chosen, and what happened?
Well, there's actually quite a controversy. Electioneer was purchased back east in New York when Leland went back there in 1876. He found this horse and thought it met his specifications perfectly, and all of his consultants recommended against purchasing it because the horse had not had a proven track record up to that point. And of course, later it did quite well here in Palo Alto.
Yes, it proves that the experts aren't always right. For more information, I see that there's a kiosk here as well.
Yeah, right behind the statue of Electioneer, there's a kiosk here out at the Red Barn, and also there can be information at the Historical Association files.
Well, great. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Mary Jo Levy is the former director of the City of Palo Alto's libraries. Now she's a full-fledged friend of the library. Mary Jo, I understand there's something special about February.
February is the month statewide when library lovers celebrate their libraries. It ties in with Valentine's Day.
And each year, or in February, you can focus on a certain thing. So what's the focus for this particular Library Lovers Month?
Well, this year the Friends of the Library are going to help promote again the Library Lovers Fund, a fund which helps support through donation gifts to the library that go directly to new materials.
And so you've done this before. What might be some titles that you've purchased through the fund?
Well, the titles are all formats, and they go to all libraries, and annually about $18,000, $19,000 of new materials have gone into the libraries. And on this cart, I have a few of them. The one I have right here is called an Impressionist Still Life, and inside it is a book plate, and this particular book was purchased through the donation of Tom and Ellen Wyman in memory of their friend Roberta Harvey, a longtime member of the Friends of the Library.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the difference if I purchased the book myself directly or if I donated to the fund?
If you donate to the fund, the library can take advantage of a significant book discount so that all of these materials are purchased at about 40% discount.
Oh, well, that's substantial then. And how would people get more information?
You can go to any library in Palo Alto. They all have these particular coupons, and they can fill it out and fill in any donation amount that they want. A lot is better.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
John Ballard is a supervisor in the Public Works Division. We're here at the Creek Camera at San Francisco Creek. John, so just where is the camera?
The camera is right on that light pole right behind us.
I see it's a pretty small one. We'll get a close-up of it. Now, tell me about this new wall that's up here. It's a levee wall?
On the other side of the bank, on the San Francisco side, on the Palo Alto side, the JPA has just completed construction of a new levee bank. The whole block wall has been replaced all the way up towards University Avenue.
Well, I know we're doing a lot for flood control and flood maintenance, but let's come back to the camera. What are some advantages of having a camera above a creek here?
I think the most important advantage is that the residents or anybody who's looking at our webpage to see the icons that show the creek level can immediately relate that by looking at the creek cam and see how that relates to what the water level is, visually right away. I think that Santa Clara Valley Water District staff can view it because they're responsible for the maintenance during a rain event, mostly, or a storm and flood event. Material floats down the creek, gets jammed up into the underneath side of the creek into the bays of the bridge, and they can determine whether they need to send somebody up there right away. It also saves us from having staff time coming out here during a storm event, where we can just look at it on the camera, on the video page. So it's really advantageous for those reasons, I suppose, more than anything.
Now, I think there's a distinction that we need to make between the level of the water and the capacity of the creek. Can you make that distinction and tell us what the difference is?
Sure. The level of the creek is measured right here with the little ultrasonic transducer that's at the end of the pole.
Okay.
And that literally just measures from the bottom of the creek straight up. It's measured in linear, right in feet. There's no other definitions. The capacity of the creek changes as the creek widens, as it gets towards the higher levels of the creek.
Yeah.
And the capacity changes by volume as it gets wider, the more carrying capacity of the creek. So what we're showing on the webpage on the icon is literally how far it is from the bottom to the top, or is it touching the bottom of the bridge? Is it at the top of the bank wall? And we also measure whether it's at 50% capacity of the creek and 50 or 80% capacity of the creek, which are much different than just literally the height from the bottom to the top. So the capacity was calculated by Public Works Engineering so that we have an alarm system that tells us when we're at 80% of capacity so that we can make whatever has to happen, whatever change the city wants to make, whatever announcements they want to make, they can be done at that time.
So just to paraphrase now, because the creek is very narrow at the bottom, the level might be one thing and the capacity is going to be pretty small, but the wider it gets, the more capacity.
That's correct.
Okay.
And on each creek, it's different. There's upstream, the walls are square, some of the channels are concrete lined, some of the channels are natural, so the capacity is much different. Also, some channels have a wall, and then they have a flat space where there's roadways, maintenance roadways on both sides, and then another wall upside. So it may be very high in the creek, but we're not at 80% capacity.
Okay.
And each creek is individually, calculated.
Okay. And the 98 flood, that was pretty severe right here.
Yes, it was. 98 flood, we had water coming out. This area was basically underwater. Just downstream of here, we had water coming out the golf course. This was a pretty heavily impacted area.
Okay. And how do residents log on to the creek camera and find out about the levels and the capacity?
Oh, it's easy. You just go right to the city's main webpage, and a couple of clicks later, you're on the city's creek emergency warning page.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I'm in the Emergency Operations Center of the City of Palo Alto. Mick, I see that this center is set up with various desks for different functions. What are some of those?
That's correct. We've broken it down to where we have, over here to my right is the Director of Emergency Services. And that's really based on the hazard that we're experiencing. So in other words, if we had a terrorist activity, the police chief might, or his designee might sit there. If it's a fire event, then fire. Or even if we had heavy storms and power outages, it may be Public Works. So with that, we also have an operations, which includes fire, police, Public Works, and utilities. Mm-hmm. We have logistics, which fits the needs of all of the city as far as anything they need as far as staffing, food, fuel, whatever the needs are for the events, and logistics takes care of that. And we have planning and intelligence, and that function really looks at some of the mapping needs that we may have, forecasting. So if we're in a flood situation, we may need to find out what the weather forecasting is for the next few days.
Let me stop you there and go specifically to floods and maps. So I understand because of the various flooding events that we've had in the city, you've done some extensive work in that area? Well,
we have. While we can't prevent the actual floods, mm-hmm. we have done some things like community notifications. We have a community alerting system that we can actually notify the residents what we feel is ahead of time. We've put a weather station up in the Foothills Park, so we can grab the real weather data and then compilate that about an hour and a half to 2 hours later, and figure that that's going to be back in the creeks, and we use that in conjunction with the high tide information. Mm-hmm. We've increased our sandbag locations. We've provided lights with the sandbag locations. We have filled sandbags in currently 3 locations at the airport, at the Greer Park, and Barron School. We have the capability of activating another 2 sites as needed.
Mm-hmm. And you have mapped out the potential flood locations too.
Well, what happened is after 1998, Public Works went out and actually did the mapping, mm-hmm. and in conjunction with that did the elevations. And so it allows us to see what the low-lying areas are, which will pocket the vast amount of water. So if you're at Palo Alto Avenue and the water comes by, you may not be at risk, in other words, mm-hmm. to have high flood waters, but you will get it first. It will pocket down in some low-lying areas, and that's the areas we want to notify first off.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a community alert system which allows us to telephone people if there's an emergency. Don't you also use a ham radio situation?
Well, we use the ham radios. When we activate this physical site here, a ham radio operator is assigned here, mm-hmm. and they coordinate activities. We have ham radio operators that are assigned to every school, every medical facility, every fire station, and we're currently going to be doing to our Panda trailers, the Palo Alto Neighborhood Disaster Activity trailers, are all equipped with ham radio operators, and there's going to be assignment to those as well. Mm-hmm. And their job is to coordinate. In the event we lose any other communications, they will be our backup means.
Well, speaking of community response, that leads me to my next question. What's your advice to community members when and if there's a disaster of some sort? What should they do and how do they prepare?
I think the key thing is to really prepare yourself and your family for any disaster. You can add a little bit here and there for the specific ones, but all disasters are pretty much the same. They require home preparedness, workplace preparedness, and so if you're prepared at home, then you're going to do a whole lot better as a community, and eventually we'll get through any disaster.
And what's the best way for residents to get more information?
For more information, we have a website on the city, cityofpaloalto.ca.us, and under there you can go click on emergency services and find flood information, terrorist information, fire information, as well as earthquake information.
Super. Thanks so much, Mick.
You're welcome.
Alma is one of our busy streets here in Palo Alto. I'm with David Stillman. He's going to talk to us about how we measure traffic flow. David, you're a transportation engineer, so why would someone like you want to measure the vehicle speeds?
Primary reason is to increase the safety on our streets. Most accidents that occur are speed related in some form or the other. So by determining the speeds along the streets, we can determine where the primary speeding problem is occurring. Those are generally where a lot of the accidents are occurring, and we can work to reduce accidents.
Then, over time, you must have developed any number of different ways of measuring vehicle speed. Can you tell us what some of those different ways are?
Sure. There are 4 ways that we measure vehicle speeds within the city. One is using a radar gun, similar to what police use to enforce the speeds. Another way is using rubber hoses that are laid across the streets. Those serve to count cars and can also tell us how fast the cars are going. A third way is using GPS technology. This is a new program that we've started this past year, where vehicles equipped with GPS transponders throughout the city can relay information back to a database that can tell us how fast those vehicles are traveling. And the fourth method is using loops which are embedded in the street, similar to the types of loops which work for signal activation, can also work to tell us speeds of vehicles.
Well, all of that must keep you busy because after you measure, then you must have to analyze the data. So what do you do with it after all of that?
Right. Well, one thing we use the data for is to determine speed limits on the streets, and the radar gun is what's used for that. In order to determine what a speed limit is, we need to go out on the street, determine what the predominant speeds of vehicles are, and we base the speed limit on that information. Also, we use the information in our residential traffic calming program. Streets that might be eligible for speed humps or traffic circles, one thing we use to determine whether that street is eligible is what the speeds are along that street. And also in general, just to look for ways to increase safety where we have a speeding problem, determine what kind of methods might be used in general to reduce speeds along the street segments.
So, for example, if a resident was concerned about traffic and vehicle speeds on their street, how would they find out more information?
They should contact me directly at the Transportation Division, and I can work with them to determine the most appropriate way to measure the speed and determine ways to mitigate any speeding problems that we find.
Super. Thanks so much, Dave.
You're welcome.
Scott Bradshaw is the Assistant Director for Utilities. Scott, I imagine that you have a certain annual calendar of things that you run through to make sure that by the time storm season rolls around, you're ready. So what would that calendar be?
Well, first of all, we spend a vast majority of the year working on our tree trimming program, where we spend a lot of time cleaning up the danger trees and other problems we have with our trees so that it don't affect our lines when the winds do blow.
Sure.
Secondly, in the early fall, we run through our emergency plan and we go over all of our everything that we have going on in our system so that we make sure that we're prepared when the storm season does arrive.
Okay. And then I'm guessing that you probably have to keep a real close weather watch, isn't that right?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we do watch the weather. If something major is coming in, we actually put on extra crews and extra people on standby so that if something major does hit, we are able to respond quickly and efficiently to the problem.
Yeah. And I believe you've instituted a 24/7 policy where you can respond right away.
Well, actually, we do have 24/7 here at the Utility Communications Center. We're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we actually monitor the system, looking for problems, watching for things that could happen, and calling the crews. We also have 24/7 customer service people in the water, gas, wastewater system to answer water, gas, and wastewater calls should they happen anytime during the day or week.
Now, all of that has to do with what the city is doing. What advice do you have for residents and people in the community, because they need to be equally prepared in the winter?
Well, first of all, you should have the basics. You should have some water, you should have some food, you should have flashlights, and you also should have access to a phone somehow, because if the power does go out, please call. If we don't sometimes know when the power's out in certain places, you may be an isolated instance, so please make that call. If you can't get through, please try again. Sometimes our phone lines get jammed, but please try and call again and get through. But mainly be prepared, because we sometimes have situations where we can't predict it, so please be prepared.
And part of that is the fact that there are sometimes extenuating circumstances where we can't guarantee electricity 100% of the time. I mean, you know, if we have all the crews out or something like that, isn't that the case?
Well, actually, there's no way we can guarantee 100% service. There are going to come times that where the power is going to be out. We could have an earthquake, we could have a major windstorm, we could have a number of things happen where the power will go out and we will be stretched and stressed so that we have a tough time getting that power back in. And it may take us up to several days to get the power back in. The important thing is that we are working very hard to get the power back in, and if the customers are prepared, we'll all work together and be able to survive healthy and happy.
Now, we didn't talk about this before, but I had an experience where I had a cordless phone and the power went out and the cordless phone didn't work. Are you familiar with that sort of activity where the cordless doesn't work, or you need a cell phone?
Well, I would suggest most of the time the phone system does work when the power's out. Sometimes with a phone system that is powered by electricity, where the ringers are powered by electricity, you'll have that problem. But for the most part, the phones do work. But if you do have a cell phone, I suggest you keep it charged.
And then for more information about utility services, what should residents do?
Look at the utilities website. I believe it's cpau.org, or call into the utilities department and we'll give you all the information you need.
Super, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie with the Regional Water Quality Control Plan here in Palo Alto. The City of Palo Alto is committed to being an environmental leader and was recently honored as the first Bay Area city to be awarded Green Business Certification for its municipal operations. The Green Business Certification Program is coordinated by the Association for Bay Area Governments, a group which helps coordinate land use, housing, environmental quality, and economic development efforts throughout the area. Over 200 businesses have been certified in the region, including 3 here in Palo Alto: Palo Alto Hardware, Rosenthal's Auto Service, the Palo Alto Print Shop, and now the city in its operations. To meet the certification criteria, the city had to first meet all of the state and local environmental regulation requirements, and then exceed those by demonstrating significant reductions in its energy and water use, in its solid and hazardous waste generation, and in air and water pollution. So what efforts helped the city to meet this challenge? First, the City Utilities Department retrofitted all of the city traffic lights and city building lighting, heating, and the cooling systems to the most recent technologies. This reduced the city's energy use by 17% and will save the city over $250,000 a year. That's enough energy also to power 400 Palo Alto homes annually. Our Information Technology Department also helped in this effort by installing software which reduces the computer monitor energy use. This also saved the city another $17,000 a year. State-of-the-art irrigation systems at city parks save 20% of the water we'd use otherwise to keep our parks green and healthy. And our Public Works Department recycling and hazardous waste efforts minimize the amount of waste going to landfills. To help reduce air and water pollution, the city began using innovative strategies such as low-mercury fluorescent lamps, least toxic pest control strategies, and an award-winning alternative commute program. Last year, the city also inventoried its print shop and custodial chemicals and made product switches to ensure that the least toxic products to people and the environment are used. Next time you're at City Hall, take a moment to notice the new lighting, the unbleached bathroom papers, and even the 100% recycled content paper used in copiers. And remember that these are just a few of the environmental improvements that we've made, most of which save the city money or cost no extra money to implement. If you want to learn more about how to reduce your resource use and save money, visit our website or contact us by email or phone at the numbers you see on your screen.
Are you stockpiling old, unwanted items that the recycling program can't accept, but you don't want to throw away? Then check out the online Recyclopedia. It's a resource for you to find reuse and recycling organizations that are interested in your unwanted items. The online Recyclopedia is available around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have a wide variety of resources available for items from TVs and electronics to appliances, furniture, building materials, eyeglasses, and much more. It's easy to use. Look at the website address shown at the bottom of the screen. From there you can click on any of the materials listed and you'll be linked to a table that shows reuse and recycling options for that material. It's easy, convenient, and it promotes reuse and recycling, furthering our efforts to conserve natural resources and reduce the amount of waste going to landfills. If you don't have internet access, call the recycling program at 496-5910 and we'll be happy to help you. So before you throw it out, check it out. The Recyclopedia, that is. This is Wendy Hediger reminding you to reduce, reuse, recycle, and buy recycled.
Now available for adoption at the Palo Alto Animal Shelter. Mercury is a 5-year-old neutered male that is very easygoing and gentle. He doesn't mind other cats and enjoys the company of people from all age groups. Tori is an 8-year-old spayed female who is looking for a loving home, preferably with adults only. She'd make an ideal companion for a senior citizen. Skittles is a 5-month-old spayed female kitten. She is still a bit on the shy side, but she's very loving once she feels comfortable around you. Ginny is the best dog, and we are so surprised that no one has adopted her. She's an 8-year-old spayed female Labrador that is incredibly well-mannered and even housebroken. Nellie is a 1-year-old spayed female Mastiff that is sure to be a big part of someone's life. This gentle young lady is very eager to please and eager to learn as much as she can. Little Arthur is a neutered male miniature pinscher mix that came into the shelter as a stray and was never claimed by his original owner. He's only 8 months old and very, very cute. Here's Priscilla and Petunia. These two ladies are looking for a home together. Please come and meet them, or at least do them a favor and tell a friend about them. You can see all these animals and many more at the Palo Alto Animal Services, 3281 East Bay Shore Road. We're open Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Give us a call at 496-5971.
Thanks for watching CityBeat, Inside Palo Alto. I'm P.A. Moore. Remember, we'd love to hear from you. Send your comments to the email address listed at the end of the credits. Until next time,